Well, greetings everyone, especially you angels out there. This is Hilton Milan, signing in, asking you to tune in for a Divine Dude Hour, or moments, we call this Hilton time. Welcome everyone. Today, I have an exquisite guest, Bill Nesbitt, William Nesbitt. And I want to introduce him because he's introducing what he's given so much of his life to in bringing his new son into the world 23 years ago.
Well done.
And in having a chance meeting with this exquisite young man, an old soul that has obviously just been able to become present with an appreciation of hundreds of years back, now studying thousands of years back, and working diligently to express it in the eternal now or infinite now with all generations. And that's Zakota. And
It's my son.
yes, and I had to just, pay homage, because in meeting this young being that took a delight in refined masculinity.
Thank you. Yeah.
Unique. Just a joy to everyone that spends any time with him, because he just emanates that joy. So something had to happen to him.
And it was not the predictable future.
Yeah. So this is, the Divine Dude version of the Angel's Den.
Yeah.
So inviting any angels out there that can see the value of in not investing, but vesting in some contribution, do be in touch with Hilton at iCloud.com for now, and we will connect. We will do what we can to connect you, so that you can be angels in action.
Mm-hmm.
Angel's Den, where we actually manifest, healing and healthy dreams. And I'm here introducing Bill Nesbitt to tell us about yours.
Yeah, I'm here to talk about high honor parenting. Just raising kids in a perspective of high honor, in a context of high honor, where we revere and highly honor children. This is for many parents, their background, how they were raised, this will be a profound departure from generations of dishonor and how they were raised. And let me try and clarify that in terms of what I mean by high honor. I mean that even in a viewpoint towards our kids, to see them in an extraordinary bright way, to spend the time discovering what's worthy of honoring about them, sometimes in the smallest ways, and then letting the kids know that, so that they feel a greater sense of worth, so that they get their value. So many parents will approach their kids and be able to pick out every flaw. A lot of parents raise their kids inside, here's what's wrong and we're going to fix it. And by spending that much time on what's wrong with the kid, it sends a fundamental message to the kid that there's something fundamentally wrong with you.
Could you give an example of the first time you consciously, transformed that with your son?
Yeah. It goes back further than that. I was raised in a lot of violence. My dad was a pretty violent man, a very successful, self-made man, a lot of power. He overcame polio. 8 guys were rolled into a hospital ward. 9 of them were rolled in. 8 of them died. He walked out after a year of being paralyzed. Before that, he had a swimming scholarship to Indiana University. Before that, he was number 1.
What was his name?
William Nesbitt, the second. I'm the third. And hugely powerful and dominant figure. So as a 7-year-old, I was terrified of this guy, especially getting slapped around and stuff like that. The last time my dad hit me, I was 14 years old. He kind of caught me out of the side. Over here, I saw it coming but couldn't duck fast enough. I was pretty good at ducking or dodging at that time. And with a full blow, he hit me in the side of the head. I cleared a king-size bed, and I hit the wall on the other side and kind of crumpled semi-conscious on the floor. He had broken my eardrum, and we didn't know it at the time, and I went swimming in the school pool and had all this burning inside my ear canal. And the school nurse looked and sent to a doctor and found out my eardrum was broken, and the chlorine was burning the sensitive tissue in there. You know, this was just one of many beatings. And I also had a absolutely fabulous life with this guy where he was incredibly generous. So for years I had focused on many of the identities that he had imparted in me through the dominant destructiveness and his approach and viewpoint on me, and got all messed up in those. And in the last number of years, when I've been doing all this transformational work, I got clear that he also helped to build some extraordinarily bright identities in me. You know, I'm 16 years old. He sees I'm becoming a really good water skier. He buys me my own ski boat, you know, and gives me a unlimited expense account down at the local marina for gasoline. So I end up skiing all the kids on the lake, all my friends. And of course, I become a pretty popular kid because I can take everybody water skiing. But I also become an extraordinarily good water skier, like the best on the whole lake. I was barefooting before anybody else. This picture, that's just like an average turn for me on an average day. The way I would usually wipe out is I would catch my shoulder on the wake. I broke a lot of ribs that way because I double my speed. I'm doing about 38 the boat's doing about 38. I double my speed here, so I'm doing about 75, 80 miles an hour cutting across. So when I hit the wake with, my arms stretched out in the ribs, the life jacket I've got on there is designed to pad that.
Okay, that's a life. I thought that was you, all of you, but the life jacket. Because I thought, you're.
Well, the life jacket's the yellow part.
Okay.
I'm kind of the rest of it. Now, I realize this guy helped build these extraordinary identities in me too. What I mean by identities, they're parts of ourselves that show up when we're engaging something. And so these things, as a child, when we're impacted in a really hard way, then we start to show up in the world in a defensive way, or when authority comes up, then it's like, whoa, this could really damage me. So there's a protectiveness and a hiding. I mean, you and I have been friends for a while, and
yes.
I know some of your history and that you went through, some incredible abuse. And these things stay with us, for life.
Yes.
And I know yours have. And they color your down moments at your age now.
Yes.
And these color my down moments.
Mm-hmm.
My background, Upper Canada College, high school, highly competitive school.
Brutally competitive.
Yeah, incredible.
In a very sophisticated
Yeah.
and, perhaps hidden, unsophisticated ways.
Well, these are also boys that have been conquered by these really powerfully successful men, just as I was. And so it's one of the most socially retarded places on the planet. Absolutely tragic. I mean, when I arrived at the school in '72, it was 6 years after caning was abolished. Now, caning is where you take a cane, the teacher at the front of the room takes a student up to the front of the room, has him bend over a desk, and then wallops them with a cane. Each purple welt you can see on the back of a student's legs. This is in the movie Flirting, which is about a British boys' private school in, you can see these welts, is what I'm saying, in Australia. So the movie's called Flirting. It's one of the first roles with Nicole Kidman. Very amusing movie, but really shows the British school system. So you got to think, if Canada's aristocracy went through this type of abusive schools and became parents and became the leaders of our country, it's no wonder they can order riot cops to go in and bust up a demonstration in Quebec City with a bunch of teachers. I mean, what kind of threat are a bunch of teachers? And they brought in riot cops to quell this demonstration. So you got to look at what's capable of people who've been raised in this way, but then go back. Let's go back even further. Like, why was my dad beating the shit? Because his dad beat the shit out of him. And what happened before then? Well, our family heritage is Scotland and Ireland, eh? And what happened there? And then, my grandfather, it's like my grandfather was born in 1901, so he lived through World War I, Great Depression, World War II. My dad was...
Tough dudes.
Yeah, exactly. And what did they live through? Now, how did they cope with it? My mom has a fridge magnet of this woman in these horn-rimmed glasses with this quote underneath that says, "In my day, we didn't need all this therapy. We had a little thing called the martini."
Yes.
Now that gets even funnier when you know that my sister is a PhD psychologist who's on the team that is bringing psychology to China. And so the amusement in her family.
Through terrific abuses, with the regimes
Oh,
that have been brought in just in the last half century or so.
look at the purge of Mao Zedong. All the arts, all the intellectuals,
Yes.
exterminated. How are those families? Brothers, sisters, turning each other in?
New generations now still not having dealt with the remnants of that passed down through the generations where it's invisible yet a driving force.
Massive suicides, in the corporate culture in China. I mean, this is, we're on a planet that has been tormented and tortured, and we haven't come out of it yet.
How do we recover and heal from that?
This is an individual thing, right? And as we, you've done some of the work too, where you start by noticing the disharmony in our being, the upset, the identities that we built as kids that we're still trying to get out of, that run, they're like programs that
And
run.
even unconscious, this light dark and this light dark within, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And as we peel the onion, transformational work, therapy, all sorts of different ways of doing it, whatever,
Yeah. The work.
the work, whatever rings your chimes, whatever works for you,
But
go
doing
do
the
it.
inner work, like not just the outer work.
Yeah,
Finding a balance.
Yeah, the inner work. And the inner work being that when we start off peeling that onion and we find this, first layer of identity, like the first program
Yes.
that was the way we survived. I mean, I just had to overcompensate for an identity that my dad related to me in as you're just basically not good enough, you never will be, and I'm backing somebody else, which he did. He's got a couple of other sons out there, not blood, but people that he created the relationship of a son with, because I went in a different direction. And out of that...
That's a betrayal or a feeling
Yeah,
of...
sure it is, because there was also promises to me that he would back me.
Yeah.
Now, at the same time, you got to see, this guy helped me build extraordinary identities, and I overcompensated, right? I had to go to extremes. Coming out of UCC, I go into business at McMaster University, then aerospace engineering at Ryerson. I come out of that at 30 years old. I'm the CFO of a building development firm. At 36, I had a business in the film industry where I had 47 guys and 6 girls. I mean, I was making payroll every week, and you got to sell a lot.
For over 50 people, my gosh.
Yeah. And this is...
And that's,
this is,
you started that from nothing.
Yeah. And you got to also see that my dad related to me as somebody who was lazy, right? Now you got to see, this is lazy, right? Now why? I had food allergies as a kid. I was allergic to milk, and nobody knew this. So I would spin up into like a winding top, and then I would crash down like at night. I would eat, let's say, lasagna for dinner. I was allergic to cheese, and so I'd be up till 2 in the morning. Dad would be waking me up at 5:36 in the morning, time to go, right? And I wouldn't be able to get going. And he just thought that was laziness. Nobody knew there was a food allergy and that I was up till 2 in the morning. Now,
It's
night
like
after...
being poisoned every day or every night every night.
Yeah.
And then your system has to somehow restore its balance, and and it takes time to heal from,
Sure.
I know I've had some food poisoning.
Yeah. This is like, these guys, parents don't mean to, traumatically impact their kids.
Yes.
And this is what, we got to break this chain. We got to change this. I built a program just for that, to change, to break that chain and to have new choices and consciously know exactly what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So the kids don't have to spend so much of their lives in this duality of doing great things after all the stuff I do, what do I feel? Worthless. I'm still dealing with feeling worthless. Still dealing
There's
with
nothing worthless there.
I know. I get it.
Absolutely nothing.
I get
And
it. Yeah,
nothing worthless there.
exactly. And this is thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste. Yeah, it rhymes with no money.
Very good, very good. So what can we do about that?
What can we do? Let's when we see that it's systemic, it's in our system, in our economic systems. The planet's coming out of it. The new generations that are out there right now, the kids in their 20s and 30s, get that the planet is popping like popcorn. Different areas are getting super bright. And I believe the planet, its vibration is raising. I just see it all over. And at the same time, what happens when we get lighter and brighter? The darkness raises to the surface and needs to be cleared. And if it isn't cleared, it explodes. And we're seeing that all over the planet right now.
I've noticed with younger people, in their 20s, their teens, their 30s, so the millennials, pre-post, but I've been noticing that so many of them are not caught up or chasing the material dream.
Yeah.
But balance and profound balance, not just for themselves, but for their peers.
There's huge segments like that going after that. They're conscious. I mean, this is the millennials are a generation that is so politically aware, so environmentally aware. I mean, we barely had a clue when I was, a teenager or in my early 20s. What was so many of my generation just didn't get the change that needed to happen on the planet. The 60s had happened and got marginalized, the values from that era. And, the 80s kick in and we get, we suddenly go from a global village to globalization. Very, very extreme change that happened and impacted the planet, where investment went around the world saying, if you improve your environmental conditions, raise your health and safety standards, or allow collective bargaining, we're going to pull out of your country. And we're going to have agreements that if you do that, your government can be sued for lost future profits. And the corporations that are losing those future profits from the original agreements will be paid by your government, which is like taking money from common people and handing it to the top. So this went on, instead of investment going around the world and saying, hey, raise your environmental standards, raise your health and safety standards, learn from what we learned.
Intergenerational accountability.
Should have been done that way. This is where the greed kicked in. Now, this millennial generation seems to be pushing back against that. And I will also say that the millennials have founded more businesses that are sustainable and still running today than any other single generation in history. 23% of the millionaires out there, this is from Forbes magazine, 23% of the millionaires are millennials. So let's not paint these kids as flaky at all. They're out there making it happen, but they seem to have a balanced viewpoint of what needs to change on the planet. There's great hope when you look at the rock and roll generation of the 60s with all their values and what was being broadcast through the consciousness at that time, through music and film and the arts. Those people are now, what's Mick Jagger's in his 70s, Paul McCartney's in his 70s. Pretty soon the entire planet's going to be a rock and roll generational planet. And that's what gives me the greatest hope, that we will actually fundamentally change just by the older generations dying off, the old guard that was, whose values were formed through World War I, Great Depression, World War II. Hopefully we won't forget about some of the betrayals that happened then, and we can avoid...
Learn from those mistakes.
Yeah, learn from those.
And love from them. What a high price our forebears and grandparents, paid.
Absolutely. When I see the millennials coming up now,
yes,
I see many of them talking about having indigo kids being born to them, Crystal
that
kids.
mean?
These are kids of higher intelligence, extremely high sensitivities, extreme artistic talents coming through. Like it seems like a strain that's either this is the first time we're waking up that this has always been here, and maybe we've marginalized it, or there's actually something new happening on the planet. And when these kids are looking at how to raise kids and not damage them, that's what high honor parenting is about. That's why I built it. That's why I want to bring it out now, so that the kids in their 20s and their early 30s, kids for me. So the young adults who are wanting to have kids can start to really, really know what they're doing and how to impact their kids in such a way that they uplift and empower their kids and animate their kids' brightest potential and lay a foundation of core happiness for their children. So many times when people are just driving the success gene into their kid deeper, they're not actually imparting a core sense of happiness and contentment and fulfillment and sense of great worth. And you know Zakota, my son, and just where he's at. And so you've seen that I've totally broken the chain.
Totally.
Yeah. And how it happened.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. And how it happened was I was so scared to have kids because of the impact of my father on me. I just could not do that to another human being. So I was wary of having kids.
Yeah.
So when my wife said she's pregnant, I mean, I got a daughter who's 35 and my son 23. My daughter has 3 children, so I've got 3 grandchildren now. And we raised our daughter far differently than our son. She was raised as my wife was reeling me in from my extreme reactions. Now, I never got violent, never got crazy, but some of the yelling and stuff that I did to our daughter scared the hell out of her, because I'm a pretty powerful guy with a very powerful voice.
Yes.
And for her being 8 or 9 and I lose my cool, my God, man, how's she dealing with that? Well, she's come out of it pretty well because we've had a really good partnership. But again, the long-term identity imprints are still there with her. And she's going to have to do the work to clean this.
To do the work.
To clear it.
Every person, when that comes in, and it...
You're right on.
It reminds me of, for instance, as we speak of the establishment and the aristocracy, the people that seem to have more.
Yeah.
Rather than just the have-nots. What we are blind to is what they have not in so many cases. Just because there's money or power doesn't mean that there's love. And that power, and it's not that they're not loving, but if they're addicted to having to be successful, to having a lot of money, a lot of, to have to build.
Mm-hmm.
Because in building, there's also a time to release.
Yeah.
And destroy, and having that balance. So it seems, I heard it for the first time, that children, if there's a lot of power, positive or negative, but if it's only positive or negative, would it also be neutral to allow that high honor? It becomes enabling, which is, so then there's always going to be extreme addictive patterns, rather than empowering, as I'm observing in Zach and so many others, and as I'm observing in you, as you are doing the work and clearing, cleansing, transforming the past into an ever-present, as a present, eternally future now.
Well, that's also how to get out of the traumatic patterns, is to be so present in the moment that you can catch the program starting to run, have a conscious choice in the moment to choose your impact, to choose who you want to be in the moment versus what the automatic trigger pattern is. When you're speaking of power, I've coached a number of, I don't want to really get into anything personal or examples. I'll just say that some of the most powerful people have traumatically conquered their children over and over. And as one guy said to me, I'm like a scorpion riding on the frog's back, and I sting the frog, and then we both drown. He said, it's in my nature to conquer everything and everyone around me, and that's how I've made my wealth, and that's how I keep my wealth. And he said, anything else is like living in an illusion, because we are on a predatory planet where even nature, kills to survive, and to be ignorant of that, he said that it is the nature of the business world. And I hope,
or at least it has been.
It has been. That's right. Now, can
Yes.
we change it and make it a win-win?
It's up to us.
Yeah, and generations coming in to create that new paradigm.
And it's also up to us to hold that for the next generations and the past generations, and be the clearing, the bridge for that.
Yeah,
As I'm seeing from a blind man
yeah,
that you're doing.
yeah. I have my niche. I have my
Yes.
niche, and a key niche, I do believe. When we've spoken of Zach
Yes.
and where he's at, I just want to, his accomplishments, but just let me roll them out.
And just prior to,
Yeah.
I asked you earlier for one example, your first conscious example, when you could have taken the
I had those examples with my daughter.
Okay.
With Brianna.
Okay.
I had those first because she was the first one I raised.
and then you knew
a
different.
lot. I knew a lot
You
coming up.
knew more divine.
Yeah, Zach, I came on board when Bree was 5 years old. It was
Yeah.
from my wife's first marriage. And Bree and I grew into this amazingly fun partnership. And I just honored and respected her dad and basically said, you have your core relationship with your dad, and I will not be that.
You'll never dishonor that.
I'm not going to dishonor that. Don't call me dad, call me Bill. And you and I are going to have our own friendship and our own partnership in our own way. And I want you to have a great rapport with your dad.
Rapport and relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, let's make this guy win. I ended up with the woman he's in love with. I ended up marrying the woman he's in love with, his ex-wife.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so how's that guy doing? Really, how's that guy doing out of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you care. You give
Oh,
it.
come on. If I were in his shoes, where would I be at? And I'm now living with the woman he wants to be with and his daughter. And I'm getting the time with his daughter.
Holy.
So who can I be for him?
Yeah.
How can I make it better for him? The first thing we did is we stopped the negative conversation about him in front of his daughter.
So it's high honor parenting, not just for yourselves, but for exes and all the
It
generations.
morphs into high honor relationships. And we began that with Jen's ex right off the bat. When I heard her speaking badly about him in front of his daughter, it's like, that is an archetypal figure, an icon in her life, and we can't do this. We can't do the normal thing. So anytime we're going to talk about him not showing up or all the things that were his habits that didn't work, it's not about making him bad and wrong. It's just it doesn't work. And what's the impact on his daughter when he doesn't show up?
It works with a negative result.
Yeah. She starts to feel
Doesn't
she's
work
not
well.
worthy of having her dad show up. And when he keeps saying he's going to be there and he isn't there, she doesn't understand he's working late. But he needs to call or he needs to do other things to make sure that she knows. So we would put in the compensation and cover for him sometimes. You can only do it so much.
Yeah.
But what I stopped was the negative conversation about him, and then I made a deal with him that he would stop the negative conversation about her mother, about our daughter's, about Bree's mother,
Yes.
about Jen, my wife, so that archetypal relationship would be really bright, and she wouldn't get his dark perspectives on her mother.
Yes.
And once we stopped those dark perspectives coming in, she started to thrive again because it wasn't this craziness. And so if you are in a divorce, protect your children from the impacts.
Find it's like high honor divorce.
Yeah. Let them find the ways to love their father. Let them find the ways to love their mother. Bring the brightness in. Curtail your own darkness. Mitigate the impacts on the divorced children. Help them heal. Right? I do this all the time. We're working with this all the time, and it's tragic. And to pull in, what is darkness? It's the negative gossip, right? There's just
of others and even of ourselves to ourselves.
Yeah, the bad conversations we have about who we are and The
and
lack of
sometimes not even
forgiveness of our
conscious, at the
mistakes.
deepest unconscious, in their darkest recesses, the most invisible recesses of our mind or fears.
And we get to those as we're clearing. And then they start to surface. And pretty soon, our lives are working better because we're not subconsciously making decisions from those places. Clear it, let it go. Clear it, let it go. And also the self-talk. That once we encounter those mistakes and those identities we took on, like from a traumatic event, what psychologists have shown over and over is that the kids hold themselves responsible for the beatings of a parent. I did. You held yourself responsible for the abuse you went through.
Yes.
As if you somehow were part of where your dad was at. You were just an
100%.
innocent kid.
Yeah, and I had to take on that. I was responsible, and I had to, ensure that, I had, if anything bad happened to them, it was my downfall and my doing, or my neglect. So I was on such anxiety's edge to always, frankly, protect my parents from harming each other and me, and harming themselves, and fatally.
Yeah, Hilton, I want to move into just an example for the audience so they get what you did. So you were such an extraordinary pianist at such a young age that the school you were in said, we can't teach you anymore. How old were you then?
I was 9.
You were 9. And what happened? Piano. Piano.
Oh, yes. Because I had been begging for a piano since I was 3. I got one as a toy piano as a gift when I was 7. And I remember in the first day I sort of learned a whole 25 pieces, and I said, Mom, I need more music. And she said, what do you mean? Because she didn't know how to play, neither did my dad, but I figured it out. It just made sense to me. So I just went, whoa, you really are serious about this. I've been telling you for 4 years. So she finally started listening to me. And she enrolled my dad in going to the former Eaton's. Now it's Eaton Center, but it was an Eaton store. And, my parents were poor, from Europe. My dad, Yugoslavia, Italy, my mother, Finland. And they both were war wounded, emotionally family torn, came here.
Exactly.
I popped in, in the middle of real civil war within themselves. There was no other extended family or other friends. So I was extremely isolated. The only people I knew were my parents.
And they had done no clearing work.
Right.
They hadn't done the work.
They were children having a child. And then all of a sudden I had to figure out how to keep, they were my only mates. I had to figure out at 4, and I had to make major life-saving decisions at 4 of how I was going to be for the foreseeable rest of my life, to protect my parents from harming themselves and me and just not demolition, like total annihilation. And what's really remarkable is somewhere, when I gave up on me being important, and I did that at 4, and I made a decision, I have to make them more important than me, and I have to be prepared to give my life up, and I was.
Yeah.
And in that declaration, in those life-threatening dynamics that we were all in at that moment, knives were out.
Serious craziness.
It was imminent violence, unthinkable. And I made that decision. And when I did, and when I called forth, God, please, heal this or take me out of this.
Yes.
And in my commitment, and I gave my all, and I was prepared to give my last breath, and it was vocal. That resonance shifted the energy.
In the family forever.
In the family forever. And I had to then continually use that power. A 4-year-old, and I had to find a way to keep on, not enabling, and I didn't have this distinction in language then, but empowering my parents to succeed so that I'd have the space to learn to succeed. And in music, that was the one place I escaped to. The music of Beethoven and Bach and Chopin and Liszt, the Romantics, that made everything beautiful.
Yeah.
So I resonated with that so much that I wanted to be another Franz Liszt or Chopin or Beethoven. And I embody that, and I played my heart out and spirit out. And Glenn Gould, my father was a maitre d' in the Lord Nelson room, one of the establishment hangouts. And he started off as a busboy in this country.
Yeah.
And worked his way up to a waiter and then to an assistant maitre d'. And he was the maitre d' of this little grand establishment.
Yes.
Right on top of the hill and avenue. and I had the chance to meet, some celebrities like Elizabeth Taylor, Burton, and lieutenant governors. But I was like 10 years old, 9 years old, and I was already playing up a storm. My dad was proud of me.
Yes.
His name is Milan. He was so proud of me. He said, my son plays, and I used to go with my mom to pick my dad up. So we'd go sometimes at 8 or 9 at night, and we'd wait for him for a couple of hours till we finished at 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And in that waiting, sometimes there'd be some of these, people. Celebrities, yeah. And, and they heard him, and they said, sure, we'd love to hear. And then I'd play. And it was like, and then they came to me, and I had conversations like we were adult to adult, peer to peer. But it wasn't. It was just light to light.
Right.
Because there's a radiance that I was able to find and express through music, and they had established their radiance professionally as entrepreneurs or presidents of companies or countries.
Yes.
Or provinces. And, and I said, well, what makes you great? You think, but this is just music. You actually work and manifest stuff in the world. And I did that with Glenn Gould.
Wow.
And he thought, my God, you should be at the Faculty of Music.
This is University of Toronto you're talking about.
Yeah. So, I think it was 9, 10. And he just opened up the doors.
Walked you into U of T.
Yeah, and with one of the music professors, that a man named Boris Berlin, and he used to, he was considered the child prodigy maker in Canada.
How old were you at this time when Glenn Gould walked you into U of T?
I was 10.
That's when you started at U of T.
Yeah, just in music, So I got off school early, and I'd go to study there, and then there were master classes, and all my peers were 18, 19, 20. And 60.
Yeah.
So it's like, I really didn't have any I didn't have any peer friends.
Your age?
None.
Yeah. So you grew up fast.
And alone.
And matured fast.
And I felt alone.
Yep.
And as much as there was maturity, I didn't have time or space to discover immaturity.
And to be a kid and play.
Right.
All the trauma, then compensating.
Yeah.
Then the brightness you were seeking out.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
And I was driven to that. And, by the time I was 17, and, I'd spent a little bit of time on the pedestal, and, I played, greatly, but I would have needed another 10 years of investing to, I feel, earn a professional and great living so that I could have, done things for myself and for my parents and for my community and discover a community which I'd never known.
But you were out there earning $500 a concert at 13 years old.
Oh yeah.
Bringing the money home for your parents. Now $500 back in the 60s, or this would have been
70s,
the 70s?
Yeah, and 80s, yeah, or
that,
70s.
That money goes a long way.
It was, it enabled them to buy their first condominium, because before that and their first home, because before that they'd rent it.
Right, and it's paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And now you're bringing in the extra.
Yeah, and I think that started by the time I was 11 or so.
Yeah, you were giving concerts at 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little salon things, little private.
Yeah. Awesome.
And we never know where things are going to go. We think we do. We make plans and the universe laughs. And we learn to laugh with the universe.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And just move with it and see where it goes.
Yeah. And it's brought us here. I wanted a sense of family.
Yeah.
Because I was an only child. A lonely child.
Man, I just got it. All these years together, you get our high family dynamic.
Yes.
And that's what the buzz is for you with us.
Yes.
Because you never had that.
It's a whole family unit that is actually standing for each other, not just falling for each other. In high honor. I'm going to, you say high honor parenting, and that's great. But, if I can get away with it, I'd like to, put it out there as divine parenting.
Well, that's actually a scale up.
Yeah.
That's past high honor parenting. The lowest level is strict father, model value parenting, where there's a strict father or a strict mother, a strict parent is what it's known as, and the spouse is, marginalized, that person's opinions, and the kids are seen and not heard. And that's actually how the bottom third of the economic bracket in America raises their kids. And the Republican Party speaks that family value system. And it's also how the top 10% of the economic bracket. Yes. And this, George Lakoff in his book, Don't Think of an Elephant, explained to the Democrats for the first time why the bottom third of America votes against their pocketbook by voting Republican. And it's because the Republicans figured it out. And it's in George Lakoff's book, Don't Think of an Elephant. And this shows that this strict parent model value system, where there's this top-down authoritarian figure who marginalizes everybody in the household, dishonors everybody.
Yes.
And then the next level of honor up would be the nurturing parent model value system, where you've got a mother and a father, both equal, the spouses going back and forth, equal opinions, equal values, equal vote, and the kids' opinions are taken into account from time to time. That's the nurturing, and that is more the Democrat model, right? And that's, of course, how the sound bites are for the Democratic model. In that whole, again, in George Lakoff's book. The next level of honor up, meaning how honored are the kids in that? Much more so than in the strict parent model value system.
Yes.
And the next level up is high honor parenting, and the next level up is divine parenting. And that's a whole other conversation for those who have indigo kids and things like that.
And that includes, in order to have high honor parenting, we also have to do some divine parenting for ourselves, some self-parenting.
That's what's absolutely essential.
Because we can't give it to others until and even if we do and we sacrifice ourselves to do it, somewhere in there's going to have to be a reconciliation.
Yes.
So that we are actually in service to all.
Yes. And you've done so much of the reconciliation. This is the first time I really got your value of our family inside this.
Yeah.
And what you compensated with, I want you to notice the profound elegance you have that is innate and natural. From the abuse that you suffered, you went, I am not that person. I deserve more, I deserve better, and I am going to rise to the occasion. And you did extreme things. I did the same thing.
Yes.
I said, I don't deserve this. Yeah, and you know what my core paradigm is? Nothing will break me. So no matter what, but what does that require? It requires me to keep generating failures and then flexing that muscle that this too will not break me. My wife is so bored of that, by the way. So once we figured out what our paradigms are, and where did that come from? It didn't come from my dad. When I peeled this onion back far enough, I found I was dying of pneumonia. My mom and I got into this whole conversation. I was dying of pneumonia. We were living in Stratford, Ontario, and my dad was vice president of Fram Filters at 36 years old. And I got such bad pneumonia that they had to rush me to an iron lung in the London hospital in London, Ontario, which is hours away from Stratford. So my parents couldn't be there during the week. They could come on the weekends. But as a 4-year-old, I feel I'm abandoned and not loved enough that even in my hour of death, nobody's showing up for me. So I make it mean that I'm not worthy of love, even by my parents, who are back playing with my sisters that I'm really jealous of, my younger sisters. Like a 4-year-old would be of a newborn.
Yeah.
And my other sister is 2. So in that moment of dying, I realized nobody was there for me. I had to come through. This will not break me. And I took that as a core paradigm for the rest of my life. So I build these incredibly threatening circumstances. And what is more important to me than success? People being there for me. It's crazy, but I keep recreating situations for people to be there for me and me to be there for them. It's a weird dynamic. But now that I've discovered it, and I only discovered it a few months ago. So now that I've discovered it, I have a new choice. And once I inform my friends about it, then they are able to call me on it. It's like, focus on the success, get your independence back, stop creating these codependent situations, and if we're all looking out for each other that way, then we can all help each other rise. When I know your stuff, I can call you on it gently. and help you rise out of it,
And
not
hold
as
me
a
accountable
criticism.
to my higher self, or my truest, my stronger, my whole self.
Yeah, your whole self, the new discoveries of brightness you've made.
Yes.
And these new choices you have of new identities you're choosing to build. We can invent ourselves as anything we choose to be. If we're conscious, if we're not inventing ourselves, then we're just running on what was there. And many people, age because they stop inventing themselves anew. I mean, what is childhood? It's encountering situations and trying something out.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. Oh my God, it worked. So we do it the next time. And it worked again. Pretty soon, after we've done it a lot, that's our identity. That's the program we go to. That's the thing that we rely on to survive and get us through that. In our 20s, what are we doing as teens and 20-year-olds? We're inventing ourselves anew in the world.
Yes.
Right? New discoveries, new ways of taking on independence and all that. What happens when we're 60? Oh, I became this. Some people keep inventing themselves anew, greater and brighter
But
and
unless
lighter.
we develop that as a discipline, we get stuck or caught
Stuck.
in whatever paradigm we were locked in it.
Yep.
One conscious and another one unconscious. And until we align those so that we're actually clear in the present, without the dramas or traumas or the reconciled dramas and traumas of the past,
Yes, that are running us.
into a forgiving love, just like, whoa, flow infinite.
Yes.
And then like, whoa, okay, this is reality. But I'm co-creating the reality with accountability and responsibility for the best healthy intention I can manifest right now.
Right now.
And that's good enough.
Yes.
Like, it's actually grand enough.
Grand enough. Wonderfully put.
And then like, whoa, the magic of that allows so many more things. Because in our discussions, I had no concept. I felt the power, the profound power of your family,
Mm-hmm.
and what
Yeah.
was generated and resonating through Zach and your lovely wife Jen.
Yes. Yeah.
And the bond there, and the imminent commitment, or the eminent commitment from both of them for you and your realization of.
Yeah. This transformation of lifting out of these past patterns.
Yeah.
As we're going through these huge losses. So I just want to be clear. The losses that happened are all just functions of this old paradigm. And I have been working over top of these old identities all my life. And eventually, all those fears get to manifest. And as they manifest in circumstances, once the losses are past, what's available? Freedom. Like,
Yes.
really, we're in a truly free place right now where we can choose to generate whatever we want, as long as we don't get stuck in what we made the losses mean. Meaning, if we make the loss mean
You have to get it back.
inadequacy or failure, or you got to get it back, or there's all this bad and wrong, those are all negative old defeating paradigms. What's possible now? I'm in a great place right now where I can launch the work that I've always dreamed of. And I don't have the $1 million debt that I had. I don't have, I can start fresh. And I can, where I'm at is I choose the accountability of the transformation of millions of youth around the planet to move from fear and separation into love and unity by clearing their traumatic past, inventing themselves anew by choice, by design, so that they choose the character they want to be in any given moment. You keep bringing it back to in the moment. So many people have it that it's going to be this daunting thing, but it always just happens in the moment. And that's the whole point that you've been bringing up, is be present. Because in being present, then we
It's
can
not
know.
the past, it's not the future, it's now, and it's a next step.
Right.
And it is a present too, like, oh, what present can I give? And it gives back.
Yeah, yeah. And who are we being in the present moment? It's a constant choice.
Yeah.
And as we're conscious of what's running the show, of our reactions and all that, then we have that choice to stand and deliver, participate, perform from our newly invented self
Yes.
that is higher and brighter than who we were before. And it goes on and on.
Could I learn high honor parenting so I can sort of reparent, self-parent myself?
Okay, let's do this.
All right.
First thing,
Yeah.
let's start with I think there's a number of basics. I'm coming up to a 1,000-hour course, right? So it's 2 hours a week
Yeah.
for 48 weeks,
Yeah.
50 weeks.
Yeah, it's only half a year.
Yeah,
Like my employment. And, who shouldn't invest, a half a year, to ensure before we bring a child into the world, or if one's coming on board, we have 9 months notice, or 8 months notice, or 7 months notice, depending on when we're clear on it.
Yeah, it's
but still more than 6 months.
yeah,
So if any of you, aspiring angels,
yeah.
out there hear this, and you're like 7 months, or that you're going to be bringing a new life onto the earth in 9 to 7 months, or you're aware of that, take a look at doing this. You've got 6 months to prepare. How about doing as early as possible? Because even prenatally, I'm sure that the consciousness of high honor parenting could make some difference.
Absolutely. I want to discuss this in 2 parts.
Yes.
The second part will be, if you're pregnant and you're going to give birth, what to do as a prep. Or even you want to have kids in a few years, what to do to prep. We'll get to that in the second thing. Let's go to first. You made a really good point. Whatever you're using to parent your kids, you can parent yourself with it to help heal yourself.
Right.
So let's go to the first thing. The first thing is the number one responsibility for a parent: minimize traumatic impacts on your child. Whether it's from the world, the school, the kids, or whatever. Meaning, if some kid's traumatically impacted your kid, then you got to get one-on-one with your kid and help heal that. Or get professionals in there, or get people in there who are the shaman of your community, people who are wise and can really help heal that. But as a parent, your number one thing is no traumatic impacts. Don't lose your shit on your kid. No rage. There are incredible pressures in our society, and it's both in the lower parts of the economic spectrum and in the higher parts. Tremendous pressures are on the wealthy.
And brutality, at a fierce social economic level of maintaining this standard of always having to be brilliant and right.
Well, also, the economic trends that are happening and things getting taken out. You build something for your whole life, you put all your work into it, and before you know it, something's come in to take you out. And then you get to start over, like these kind of things. But also, with the pressures that are there are good reasons why parents lose their shit on their kids. They lack a deep connection. So deep connection is one of the most important things, where you have a deeply connected relationship. Because so many parents are just like, get through the basics. They're home at 6:30. There was a joke in our circle. It used to be, when we were kids, it's 11 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
Yeah.
Would come on the news, at 11 o'clock at night. Nowadays, it's 6 o'clock. Do you know where your parents are?
All right.
Right?
Yeah.
And 2 parents are working just to make ends meet. I mean, in our day, it took one general laborer working a 35-hour week to buy a home and raise a family in modesty. Mm-hmm. Now it takes 2 parents working a 50, 60-hour week with skills to pay the rent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And raise a family under intense pressures. Who's there as an influence from 3 to 6 or 7 o'clock? When the parents get home, they're bringing home takeout a lot of the time, which is full of chemicals. It'll take your body from that to this. All the toxins in our food. This will turn into that as soon as I do a massive cleanse, And I know this, and I'm very clear on it now. And I've lost a lot of weight from the cleanses that I've been on. That's the thing about being successful. You get to eat in restaurants. What comes off that Cisco truck? it's loaded with preservatives so you don't have losses, food loss in restaurants, to minimize, loss.
Spoilage, yeah.
Spoilage, exactly. And so those chemicals are just loading into our systems, plus preservatives, pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, it's all being grown in. It's why the organic movement is taking off. People who eat organic food aren't looking like me, unless they're pescatarians. Anyway, coming back to this, high honor parenting for ourselves.
Yeah.
Let's start off with minimal trauma on yourself, self-care in that way. And that would, for a lot of people, would mean making sure they're economically stable. Not a lot of high risk, or being in positions where they could lose their job, or their, the stability.
Stable, safe,
Yeah.
good enough.
Well, we've got to create sanctuaries for ourselves.
Yeah.
Really safe places, a simple place
safe,
to live.
sacred, to us, whatever that looks
Yeah,
like.
the new values are not, the fanciest house and stuff. It's a nice place, a simple place to live.
Clean
Minimal expenses
space.
within your means.
Yeah.
Minimal debt, no debt, so that there's minimal pressures.
Yeah.
That's huge self-care. That will minimize trauma on ourselves. Minimizing trauma on our kids, not losing our cool on them. Being fully present for them. It's traumatic for a kid when a parent isn't around a lot of the time, and then the only time they have for the kid is, did you do your homework? We need to hit these rules. You need to do these things right. I'm tired. So you got to structure your life so your kids don't have that kind of parent. Because what's it say to the kid is, someday it's going to be better. And for most kids, that someday never comes. They're out on their own, and they're running the same thing their parents were. And then they're impacting their kids the same way. Can we break that chain in this? So sometimes with the job situation, it's not about ratcheting up the better car, the better house. It's about getting everything paid for. It's about discovering passive income. Investing.
And we're useful even ratcheting down so that there can be stability.
Yeah, ratcheting down.
And one can always move up and down within that.
Sure. Can you build it without debt?
Yeah.
Can you take those pressures off? Can you have more time at home with your kid? Can one parent stay home now and be solid with the kids? Do a home business.
Yes.
That augments the income.
Multiple streams of income.
Right.
It's everyone's responsibility
Yeah.
and opportunity.
Yeah. Watch some Kieran Sweeney. All about living within our means without debt. And putting only 10% of our income away from the time we're teenagers leaves us in an abundant retirement in our 40s.
Yes.
And it's so simple. Kieran Sweeney, TED Talk, check that out. He's an amazing guy. He's one of my core partners in delivering high honor parenting out in the world. He's the business mind behind it. So anyway, Kieran's amazing. I want to come back to parenting ourselves. First thing, minimize trauma.
Yes.
Second thing, the viewpoint we have on our children. A kid who's raised inside, you're lazy. A parent always hammering on them about what's wrong. Can we shift that to what's amazing about you and speak that conversation into existence over and over to our kids? An example is Jodie Foster. Jodie Foster, I think, was 7 or 9 years old, doing some artwork. This is Jodie Foster in an interview telling this story. And her mom sees her artwork and tells her she's amazing. Takes her down to the art gallery and shows her Picasso. So Jodie Foster at 7 years old, 9 years old, is doing artwork like any kid does. It's all over the place. Who looks like that in the art world? Picasso. And Jodie Foster gets this connection that she's amazing, and her mom tells her this. Jodie Foster was 14 years old, starring in Taxi Driver with Robert De Niro. Where's Zach? Where's Zach at 13 years old? 99.9 percentile IQ in his IQ test. Flown down to Denver, Colorado. Gifted Development Center, Linda Silverman, World Authority. Takes Zach all through the testing and says, what university do you want me to put him in next year when he's 14? I can give him in Harvard, Yale, whatever you want. And I'm like, we don't want him to be a social freak.
Yeah.
We want him in grade 10. We want his biggest concern to be, can he get a date with the girl in the third row who he adores?
Yeah.
And she said, he'll never make it through school. They never do. He'll never make it through high school. We said, what do you mean? She said, they always find their way out, often through rebellious means. Well, grade 10, what had Zach done? Written 300,000 words on a series of children's books. And what had he generated in the world at that point? 5 global results. So this is from High Honor Parenting. You want to know the results that can come through?
Please.
Here we go. Zach aligned an amazing meeting with Carolyn Reedy, the president and CEO of Simon & Schuster. And he didn't even realize he was aligning this meeting, but he held an intention, he visualized it every night, that he would meet somebody amazing in the book or film industry, and he got us onto a really high-level cruise in the Mediterranean. And who was sitting on the top decks of this tall ship?
And that was
for a
because he
week?
wanted to research something, right?
Yeah, he had written 300,000 words on a series of children's books that began in 1701 in the Caribbean in the pirate era, where a
Piracy.
group of yeah, and the
That's
kids.
why I think Zach and I liked each other so much.
Oh, because you're the
Shevko.
pirate. You're the pirate in his life. Exactly. So we were on this Patrick O'Brien cruise, who wrote novels in the Age of Sail.
Yes.
He's the eminent writer in the world. And we went to all the locations in Patrick O'Brien's novels.
Yes.
And so this is Zach's dream trip, and they wanted him speaking to the audience, giving the revolutionary pirate's view, because Zach's historical knowledge is extraordinary. He got it from the archives in Seville that have been
That's
digitized.
meticulous.
Yeah, well, the archives and the governor's letters from the colonies and the 1700s that are sent back to the king, those have all been digitized, as well as the ship's logs. So Zach would go on the internet, hit Google Translate, copy paste Google Translate, and be able to read these archives. And Greenwich, England also. So for the archives from the French perspective in France, Aix-en-Provence, we hired a research assistant who then would dig up the letters that Zach would email her what he wanted. She would dig up the letters, translate them, send them back to him. So all of his research and all of his books, these 300,000 words, are all historically accurate down to the weather on the day. Why? Because the ship's logs have the weather on that day. So as his kids are sailing through the
Traveling in time.
through the historical events that made our maps and flags today, it's all accurate, every event that happened. And all that's fictitious is the characters and the higher values and life lessons that he's teaching through this stuff. And this is at 15 years old. So he aligns Carolyn Reedy, President CEO of Simon & Schuster, who's waiting for his manuscript.
Yes.
He aligns
Great publishers.
Mark Pariser, Hollywood writer's agent,
Yes.
who wants to turn Zach's books, into a TV series and a film series.
Yes.
Mark was with William Morris Agency, the top writers agency in the world,
Yes.
for 23 years. Okay. Zach also aligns a film finance company that I'm not going to mention, and he aligns Michael Drew, the great book promoter who's put over 100 books on the New York Times bestseller list. All these people are waiting for Zach's manuscript, and this is at age 15, and he has other global results. These are not things his parents did for him. These are things he caused to come into existence in his life through visualization, intention, core expectation, and being light and bright and resonating with the flow of the universe. And he'll speak on that with knowledge and articulation because he knows what he's doing, and he knows it better than me. As he said, manifestation, visualization, I grew up in those workshops. We brought him around to transformational workshops. He did the Landmark Forum at 9, then again at 11, then the advanced course at 16. He did Millionaire Mind Intensive with Peak Potentials at 13.
Yes.
The Passive Income Workshop, the 1 week long one, at 14. I mean, this kid was in transformational workshops from a very early age, so he's been trained in this new millennial way of producing results.
Yes.
Yeah. So when people are asking, well, what can high honor parenting deliver? Zach can cause futures to come into existence so he can live the life that he wants. He has a core of happiness. He's a great crowd of really healthy friends.
Yes.
Healthy meaning in their perspectives, in their viewpoints in life, in what they're up to. Because they don't have to compensate and cover over the trauma. You want to know where the drugs are and where the suicide is? It's in the trauma that's not cleared. You won't have that with high honor parenting.
Woof.
So let's go to viewpoint. We're
Yes.
coming back to viewpoint. So first, don't traumatize your kids. Second, have an extraordinary view on your kids. See the best in them. Find the best. Talk the best. Like
Create space for them to discover, the best and find themselves.
I got to use that.
Yes.
I got to use that because creating the space is such an important thing. That's space for
And holding
discovery.
it.
Yes.
And not as you say, shitting on their space ever.
Yeah.
Protecting it.
We did that. We held space for them, and I didn't
I
even
noticed
realize it
that.
until you said it. Thank you. Can I include that in my course?
Please do.
With your blessing. Thank you. That's awesome. No trauma. Bright viewpoint on your kid. And that bright viewpoint, I could do 5-day course on just viewpoint.
Would you?
Because it's that deep that we have to catch ourselves with the auto program. Because every area of life, we want our kids to be a certain way. Can we see it in the bright? We
not projecting ourselves onto our kids.
Because that's what we do. We project. You're right. That's it.
Or our lost selves, the things we wanted, and projecting them and then laying that on their kids rather than allowing them to find themselves, holding that space for them to discover.
Brilliantly said.
Their
Brilliantly
divine
said.
selves practically manifest in the now, learning, contributing, living, laughing,
Yes.
discovering their means and developing their means. Not as meanness, but as,
means.
as healthy meanings
Yeah,
and healing meanings.
Well, yeah, there's like a quote from Landmark, there's what happens and what we make it mean. And we are meaning-making machines.
Woohoo, yes.
So what did I make those traumatic events mean? That I wasn't good enough. Always, not good enough, not good enough. Compensate,
That's a big
compensate,
pattern for
compensate.
so many. For me, it was, I had escalating standards of perfection.
Yeah.
So even when I got 103 on math tests, I thought, well, gee, I could have had 105. Give me a break. I was relentless. I was just finding to calm down.
And this is part of the self-care, is
Yeah.
loving ourselves and really cutting ourselves some slack. And, there's times to, get strong about stuff and nail it down and make sure it comes through, and that we don't give in to, just an emotional push. I don't feel like it. I don't feel like doing it. I committed, gave my word, follow it through even though you don't feel like it, right?
Yeah. We're not our feelings. We have them.
Yeah.
And if we let our feelings run us,
Then we've given the power just to our feelings.
Yeah.
Where should the power be? In our choice.
Yeah.
In a clear perspective, what's wanted and needed.
in our conscious choice, and it can adjust and change, but if we're conscious of it with hey, this is a healthy choice.
Exactly.
A helpful, a happy choice for me for this moment or for these next moments.
Including in how we impact our children. This is the moment I'm making this healthy choice. This is the moment I'm seeing my kid in a great way, and I'm going to reflect that back to the kid. So the kid's constantly getting a message of real brightness.
So did you have to, if you saw, not that I can imagine Zach doing anything stupid or silly, but if there were a moment of that in his innocence,
Of course
did you
he-
just
he
make
did.
lightness of it and you like and like?
I don't know, man. I was all over his case like most parents, right? And at one point, he's looking up at me. This is after a Landmark workshop, and he's got the language. He looks up at me and goes, Dad! 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 And I'm like, what? And he's like, I can't hear what matters to you with all the dishonor landing on top of me.
Oof.
So, give the kid the equality like a normal human being who would be able to say that if he was an adult.
Yeah.
So he's able to call me on my stuff. I get to go away, rethink this, choose a new way of being with him, and I come back and I say to him, when you impact me this way, this is what happens to me out in the world. I don't know if he was making me late over and over or what it was. But it's like then when I'm out there, I'm not respected. People are doubting me. Maybe a pay cut or something like that. He says to me, I don't want to impact you that way. And I'm like, well then, we got to do something different. Mm-hmm. So what normally would have been a punishing moment for a child from a parent was now him having the choice in how to impact me.
Empowered. Not
He's now
enabled.
an
Yeah.
empowered person.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So then that became the language between us that could go down really fast because we had the background. So it's like, Zach, how are you impacting me right now? I'll tell you how you're impacting me. This, and this is going to go down. Please, let's go. And I say to parents, compliance, that happens in the deep connection. You don't have to punish. You don't have to come down top heavy on a kid if you're in deep connection with the kid. All you have to do is reconnect and say, hey, and call them on their stuff. Call them to highly honor you as a parent. And say to the kid, I honor what matters to you. Now please, you got to honor what matters to me in this moment.
Yeah.
Now what happens when it's in conflict?
What does?
What happens when what matters to you and what matters to me are in conflict? As adults,
Yeah.
we compromise.
Yeah.
And that's usually lose-lose. There's another way that's even more fun with kids, is how can you get what really matters to you and I get what really matters to me? We get to invent a new possibility.
So you both have to listen.
Listening
to
is
each
the
other.
first part, that I have to listen to what matters to you and not marginalize it and really honor it,
Yeah.
even though I may not agree with it.
Okay. And
Right?
you create some space for that to occur.
Right. And then you get to honor what matters to me. This is between a couple, like a husband and wife can do this. My wife and I do this all the time. She honors what matters, and she says, I hear you about this, and I get it really matters to you. And there isn't a but. There's just like, I get it matters to you. And then she finds a way to have me get that. And I find the way to have her get what matters to her. If she's looking out for me and I'm looking out for her, we're both in a win. When I'm just looking out for me against what matters to her, and she's doing the same, then we're in the old dynamic that the world and the couples are up to.
Yeah.
Inside me looking out for her and finding a way for her to win, because I'm really honoring her, I get what matters to her. And if she's doing the same, we can invent a new possibility, if that's what we're going for. A win-win, where we both come out winning. And it takes some creativity, and it takes some time. But as we get better at it, it goes faster and faster. And sometimes it can't happen in the heat of a moment. We just got to make one choice or the other. And sometimes she'll say to me, this is a 9 for me, and I'll say, nah, shit, it's a 5 for me. And then we know she's got it. We'll do it her way. Other times I'll say, this is an 8 for me. And she'll go, okay, it's a 4 for me. It's a 3 for me. It's a 6 for me or something. And then I get to have it my way. There's many creative ways to do this. Now that's in the heat of the moment what we do. But the new possibility thing, it's not compromise with lose-lose. It's a win-win. And that's how we raise Zach. If he came forth with a good idea, we would change the family plans because he had a better idea. So he became an equal to us.
But not a like a forced equal, a meritorious one.
Yeah, he deserved it.
Yeah.
You know, and we just honored what mattered to him, and sometimes he just had a great idea. And it takes something to let go of my idea for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to...
And it'd be great for him, but if we allow that to manifest, we don't know what the greatness is that for us, and a gift that sometimes,
Yeah.
at least I've been blind to.
Yeah. And what's the long-term impact of a kid whose ideas at 5 years old
Are never-
change what the family's doing and are honored for that?
So they feel worth it.
There's a worthiness, an innate
And a
worthiness.
And in that worthiness, they bring that worthiness and respect of worthiness to everyone else.
Yeah.
Because Zach does that. He
Yeah.
does that.
And so he cultivates really high honor relationships wherever he goes.
Yes.
He was in a classroom at, I think, 12 years old. It was a new school, and he came back and he said, the teacher's just dishonoring me over and over. And we pulled him out of that school.
Yeah.
I can't change a teacher.
No.
I mean, if I hold a few conversations and she wants to, take a workshop, that somebody else is giving, that's great. But really, our only solution was to pull him out of that school, and we homeschooled him, until we could find another school to put him in. We moved neighborhoods so we could get him into another school.
Whoa.
Yeah, well, that's what it takes.
That's
sometimes.
commitment, to,
Yeah.
rearing a child.
Well, I'm just going to make sure the impacts are really good
A high honor
on my
child.
kid. What is it going to take? So what if we have to move? We're all living happier.
Yeah.
There's no bad ongoing impact that's going to affect his long-term identity. There's good impacts. And it's also, what does that show up for the kid as?
Yeah.
You're worth it. What I've coached other parents in this, and they've got, but I've got 2 kids who are having a great experience, and I got 1 that isn't. Then homeschool that kid. Or send them to a private school if you can. Or find another solution. There's always a solution, and if you hold that possibility, even when it doesn't look probable, serendipity can play her hand. Things can come into play that we could never imagine if we hold that light, bright commitment, have faith in it, and take action towards it. God meets us in action, as said by my friend Jerry with, what is it? He's got, he's got that great place in Costa Rica. I can't remember the name. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. On what matters, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
I wonder if you've ever heard this. 3 words. You ready?
Yep.
You're worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let that land, eh? Let that sink in like I'm a sponge. Yeah. Yeah, I could hear that over and over, and it'd be so good for me.
You're worth it, William.
Yeah.
Bill.
Yeah.
You're worth it.
Yeah, and so get it out there in the world.
Yeah, you're worth it.
Yeah. I think we're good to wrap on that.
So on that worth,
Yes.
for everyone to get their next piece of worth, or anyone, not everyone, anyone that wants to explore this. You mentioned 1,000 hours of training or coaching or in this course.
Yeah.
So I'm imagining like $1 an hour sounds like a bargain. Is it like $1,000?
Yeah, exactly. And you can sign on monthly and quit whenever you want. Just come on with no risk at $100 a month, right?
Yeah.
And if partway through, it's really jazzing for you, then sign on for the year or something like that, and we'll discount it. We'll cut that $200 off the 1,000. So it would normally be $1,200 if you just pay through the year.
Right.
And we're offering a 1 year, and we'll probably go over that. A lot of people have said that the 2 hours, it goes by like lightning for them. So this is on my website, highhonorparenting.com. Highhonorparenting.com. Now, that course.
Highhonorparenting.com.
Right.
Check it out.
And right now the website's down because we're putting the course on it
Yes.
right now. And this will be a course on Google Hangouts, like a webinar,
Yes.
for 2 hours. And so since it's on Google Hangouts, it's recorded. So
Yes.
you don't always have to be there to tune in that moment. But what we found is when
So they
people...
can tune in whenever they want.
Yeah. If you get home from work at 7 o'clock at night, and you don't want to watch this till 9, or you want to watch this on a Sunday afternoon...
After the kids
you
are
can
in
do
bed
that.
or whatever.
That's right.
and-
You can-
Or before like 10 to 12.
Yeah, exactly. So
Now,
we're
what a healthy way to prepare before sleep.
That's a great idea. I want people to know this is an upgrade course. This isn't a negate what you're doing. This is just upgrade. Upgrade a little every week. Just a little upgrade, another little upgrade, another little upgrade. And by upgrade, I mean take on the concepts, play with them a bit, understand them a bit, go in and read some more stuff on it on our website, and then implement. And it's the implementation that will make it real. So just implement. Seeing that kid in a brighter way, being really consciously connected, receiving them, be a parent that's reachable. Are you reachable? Will you actually change direction? Or are you going to conquer your kid again? So each of these things are just this choice in the moment, and it's not a big deal because we're just doing little upgrades through the year. A whole year of that, you're a way brighter parent. You're impacting your kids way up at a higher level. Their identities in the long term of this will be extraordinary. Little increment each week. And there's not, you can see from our conversation, even this is we're honoring parents. We're not making them bad and wrong. I'm not going to be scolding you. Let your therapist do that.
Yeah, I scold myself sometimes, but I'm going to become a better self-parent.
Well,
Here
I think
now.
we're harder on ourselves than anybody.
Right.
All of us.
So it doesn't matter whether
No.
the kids are newborns, babies, young children, adolescents, probably right up to 114 and beyond.
Yeah. Let's just touch on one thing right now.
Yes.
I said there were 2 parts. The second part is suppose you're not going to have kids for a few years. What can you do right now?
Yes.
Besides doing this course, function in contribution to people.
So this could be a gift to your brother or sister
No,
that are.
I don't mean that.
No.
I mean in performance, day-to-day living. Now watch, here's how we normally relate. Let's get a distinction here between survival and contribution. Normally we're in survival. It's the old way, right? Somebody shows up in the situation, and we're in survival. There's a tinge of fear because that's our normal. We got to protect ourselves, right? So we go to evaluation first. We evaluate them. And usually what we do from there is there's some judgment passed. And the normal course of things over time is there's some condemnation. We write somebody off for whatever reason. We marginalize them, right? And that leads to just the separation that we normally have, right? It doesn't lead to love and unity. So this is fear and separation. That's the dynamic.
Yeah.
There's another way. There's another way. We meet somebody. We choose to see them in the brightest way. And we listen. Now, instead of listening from an evaluation as to what's wrong with them and how we need to protect ourselves and are we going to marginalize them, we're listening from what's wanted and needed by this person. Imagine listening to your kids that way. Not just what's wanted and needed, but can I make a difference? And if I can't make a difference, can I scout for them? And sometimes I'll call someone up 8 months of having not talked to them because I've kept their card and made a note of what matters to them. I'm sitting with so-and-so. Are you still looking to have this difference made in your business? Yes, here they are. And I pass the phone. That difference happens in that moment. I didn't invent that. That's CEO Space. It's a 10-day workshop. Look it up, ceospace.net. They've been going for 30 years.
Yeah.
These are transformational workshops. Inside contribution, if you're functioning on that way, where you're listening for what somebody really need, can we contribute it to them? Do I have insights for them? Can I actually do what they need in that moment? No? I'll scout for them. Inside that ongoing thing, we've made loads of amazing connections for people, finding out what's wanted and needed. A friend of mine has Parkinson's. It didn't take my wife more than about 6 or 7 months until she found people who had reversed Parkinson's, and it scaled back to a U.S. government-funded research, $2 million, to reverse the Parkinson's that's rampant in the Agent Orange victims from Vietnam, the people who had contact with Agent Orange. They're all neurotoxin, right? Agent Orange was a neurotoxin. It was a chemical defoliant, but it's a neurotoxin, and they're suffering from that. And this product reverses Parkinson's. Come to highhonorparenting.com and I'll let you know about it. So we took a stand for this friend Ian, who had Parkinson's. He's a wonderful man. Founded Pardons Canada, pardoned 500,000 people, right? He just had busted for a joint or something like that. They have a criminal record. Ian helped him get new lives. This man shouldn't have Parkinson's. He deserves a beautiful life. And we brought him this product. I mean, these are the things. When we take a stand for somebody, we take a stand for them. And then we go out and find it. Now imagine being a parent now that you've done that for a few years and you got better and better at it. Now what are you for your kid? You're a stand for them to win. You're automatically listening for what's wanted and needed. How can you make a difference in their lives? What's the brightest and best about them?
Yeah.
There's no longer this judgment, condemnation stuff. It's no longer marginalizing your kid. You're already trained yourself. So if you're in your 20s or teens and you're going to have kids someday, come from a context of contribution to people. It doesn't mean sacrifice.
Yes.
It just means a bit of service here and there.
Yeah.
Make that phone call. Keep that presence.
Yes.
Somebody matters to you, hold it. And guess what? When people start to do that too for you, you get a phone call out of the blue, I can make this difference for you. Is it still needed? Yeah. They make the difference. Wow, the coolest thing happened.
Yeah.
And serendipity aligns and new flows happen. This is the new world performance where we're performing in higher energies, in brighter realms. You know, people are wondering, like, what is this transformational stuff? Where does it lead? It leads to life being easier, flowing more naturally, simply, brighter circumstances, harmonically aligning with our brighter consciousness. Like, let's get that clear. Circumstances harmonically align with consciousness, right? As we think and feel and resonate. This is why when we clear the old traumatic programs, the traumatic circumstances stop impacting us. But you'll watch
So
people...
we are transformed then.
If that's kind of the barometer. When your circumstances start to become lighter and brighter, then you know you're effectively transforming those old programs, right? And there are people who have great serendipity in their lives. Listen to Peter Sage. You know, London Real, the interview on London Real, he'll lay that out for you really well. PeterSage.com. London Real is a wonderful interview place, and the interview with Peter Sage is a choice interview. And he talks about going from the world of being to me, like a victim, like the world's happening, shit happens to me,
Yes.
to then going to, by me, where I make it happen,
Ah,
right?
sweet.
To then the next level is, and that's, people who are self-actualized, who are out there making it happen. But you can only work that hard for so long. The next level up is life happens through me and for me, where you've got a perspective on even the shit that goes down that's bad is just a bigger plan of something even greater happening. I'm going to learn from it, find the humor in it, and move on. But that new thing of life happening through me, that's where we're looking for the serendipity. That's where when the door opens, walk through it, the next thing happens, and it's a natural flow. Many people go, oh, it doesn't quite fit my pictures. I'm going to do this over here. What they don't realize is that door leads in this roundabout way to exactly where they want to go, in even a better way than they possibly imagined.
Sounds like a little bit of divinity.
Yeah.
And us just dudes
That's
discussing
the
it here, and we're just wanting to
This
bring
is the
that
divine
forward.
dude in reality. That's it. As Peter Sage says, our logical mind wants success to go in a straight line, but the only thing in a straight line in this world is man-made. You look down from space, everything's random.
Yes.
How does a river flow, right?
Yeah.
River carves rock with persistence. And how does a river flow? In a random way. And our circumstances when we're coming into it, Rich Christensen wrote the book Zigzag, about he was tied to the guys who founded Google. Zigzag, Rich Christensen. It's about the success happens in a zigzag pattern.
Like we're born, even conceived, almost in that zigzag pattern. We come in, and parts move, and biology, and chemistry, and emotions, and
Sure.
mentality, and spirituality, and then as we align this
Yeah.
and radiant it both within and without, then there's a oneness, and like
We're watching Zach
Yeah.
live out
Yeah.
the serendipitous alignment in a really easy way.
Yes.
I'm telling you, there is a higher way of living here. Peter Sage nails it.
Yes.
Far better than we have time for now. And it's an hour long, and it's good.
So that means you'll come back and we'll have another little
Yes,
divine
we
talk.
will. Yes, we will. So for those who want to become high honor parents and you don't have kids yet,
Yes.
live in contribution. Live in that perspective on life.
Yes.
Stop the judgment and evaluation and marginalizing people.
Of our children and ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, you still got to be astute. You still
And
got to
our
watch
parents,
what's
yes.
happening and be sharp about it, and don't get taken advantage of. The world's full of charlatans and scams and take advantage
A
of
lot
and all
of
that.
fake stuff, but there's also,
Yeah.
when we're faithful to ourselves and the truth
And our brighter selves.
and our brighter selves, and hold that space for our beloveds, our children.
Yeah. Then the bright serendipity happens more and more, and there's less charlatans that happen to come through our lives.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Brighter circumstances happen. And we're watching Zach live that out.
Great teacher.
And you and I are both moving that way.
We're young elders.
Yeah. Well, we're anchored by those traumatic experiences, still in the hard impacts coming into our lives.
Yeah.
But I watch people who've cleared themselves, and they're living without those hard impacts coming in. And the people who have had the worst and the most traumatic impacts, the world is matching their resonance, giving them more and more traumatic impacts. Financially, the luck in business, the luck in love, or the lack of love, the lack of life, or financial impact. So we are cause in the matter. And we can choose to hold ourselves in cause in the matter. And it comes from the subtlest frequencies are the most powerful manifesting frequencies.
Yes.
So what do we find under the trauma? Really warm, loving things. But first,
Our own divinity.
First we find our programs.
Yeah.
And they get more and more subtle. Like that one at 4 years old when I'm dying there, and that was a really subtle one, but it's formed my whole life of nothing will break me. So I
And
did.
for any of us that have had that hour of death,
Yeah.
whether we had that when we were 4 or
When you were
34, I had it when
Yeah.
I was 34.
34, yeah.
Yeah, and sort of another one, after my half-century mark here.
Yeah.
And, so as these things then happen, then there becomes a new freedom to just, be in the moment and then create from nothing, through everything, whatever, anything,
Yeah,
we are envisioning in the good,
absolutely.
in the gentle, in
Absolutely.
the genuine.
Yeah. Presencing futures into existence. We're always doing it, but if our presencing is traumatic, we're presencing traumatic futures into existence. The lighter and brighter we are, the lighter and brighter we're presencing those light, bright futures into existence.
And I'm going to be a little challenging to everyone, or anyone viewing this. Bring on some divine parenting. Check out your
HighHonorParenting.com.
And that's for everyone, starting with yourself. Your children, even your parents. Just do the work.
Do the work.
Have some fun.
And have fun doing the work. It's going to be weird sometimes, but hey.
Weird and wonderful.
Yeah, weird and wonderful. Yeah.
Bill Nesbitt, William Nesbitt III, I want to thank you for coming on the Divine Dude Show. Angels Den here. Angels, come forward as you wish.
Yeah. And
Angels in training.
I'm profoundly grateful to be working with the Divine Dude, Hilton Milan. Profoundly grateful to be working with you.
A privilege.
Yeah,
and an
a
honor.
privilege and an honor.
Thank you.
Gratitude.
Thank you, good sir.
Gratitude, my friend.